Okay, good morning everybody. Today I'm going to continue on with our Make Your Own series. The last few that I've done, other than the granola, are maybe something that you wouldn't use often. So it's a bit more of a, I don't know, I wouldn't call it a luxury, but just something that's out of the ordinary and maybe wasn't even familiar to you because it wasn't to me until recently. Just wanted to show you some of the things that you can do, but today I want to do something that a lot of us use a lot of. I know we do here, and that is homemade, well, mayonnaise is something we buy in the store, and it's expensive, especially when you have a large family like I do, and everybody seems to love it and they put it on everything. We go through a lot, and if you don't get it on sale, you're paying a significant amount of money. So let's get started. Today we're going to use a food processor to make it. You don't have to use a food processor. You can use a blender, you can use an immersion blender, you can use a whisk in a bowl and do it by hand. So I don't want you to think you have to have fancy equipment to do this. I have a food processor. I am going to use it. I do prefer it over a stand blender. The immersion blender works really well. I just can't find my container that I use to do it in. So I'm going to use the food processor, and we're going to start with 1 egg. They recommend the egg be at room temperature, so I took it and put it in a bowl of almost hot water. I also put my lemon in there because I find if the lemon is warm, I get more juice from it. Okay, so we're going to start by adding the egg, and I'm using a whole egg. Some recipes say just the yolk, but I've done it with whole egg. I never know what to do with the whites, and so they end up wasted a lot of the time. So I have my egg in there. I'm going to add half a teaspoon of salt. I'm using pink Himalayan salt. You can use whatever you prefer, and I may end up adding more salt because I tend to like things on the salty side, but I'm going to go with the recipe for now. For oil, you can use whatever you want. I personally find olive oil bitter, and I try not to buy the canola oils and the Crisco oils and all those things. Glenn did buy me some Crisco oil, and I have no idea where he put it. So today I'm using half MCT oil, which is quite flavorless. And we're putting in 1 cup total. So I'm doing half and half with MCT and avocado oil. Now the oil part can make it somewhat expensive, but again, you can use whatever oil you want. It will all work. You just decide for yourself what kind of oil you want to use. Sunflower, safflower. Don't know about corn oil. I haven't ever tried it with that. I think it might have a bit of a taste. But Crisco oil. But I do try to keep mine to the healthier oils. Cutting down on trans fats. I think it's trans fats that are in it. I don't know. I get confused. So that's a pretty neutral oil combo. Together it's not so much of a combo. Now I'm going to do something different this time, because one of the secrets with making good mayonnaise and having it turn out is to add the oil slowly. And I inevitably slip and add more in than I intended to at one time, and it's just at the beginning when it's first emulsifying. As it emulsifies and thickens, you can add it more quick. But I'm going to put it in this cheap squirt bottle I got at a dollar store, Dollarama, one of them, I'm not sure which one, and it gives me a little more control, because if I do nothing, it is probably about the right speed, and then I can squeeze it as I want to go faster. So I've got oil, salt, and now the lemon. It calls for 1.5 tablespoons. So I'm just going to juice it all into the bowl, and then I'll measure it out. Okay, I'm just going to juice half of it for now. I think that'll be my 1.5 tablespoons. Or close enough. Sorry if this is blocking your view. See, now this is where okay, so there's one. And I'm going to put that as half because I've already beat some in there. Always add more, I can't take it out. So I'm going to start the food processor. So I'm just going to begin blending the initial ingredients in the food processor. I also want to be clear that the little bit of oil that's in there, you don't really put that in. I was just testing the squeeze bottle. So once it started to emulsify and thicken a little bit, then I started adding the oil a little bit at a time through that squeeze bottle. And honestly, that squeeze bottle was a brilliant idea because I never could have put it in that slow on my own. I think it worked. It's always a bit of a stressor. Just gonna get a spatula. Now you can spice it up actually. Often I will put a clove of garlic in because I love garlic. Just going to scrape it down and pulse it again for a bit. And I also think I'm going to add more oil. I think it could be thicker, and I think, ooh, it's a little dicey playing with this stuff, but I mean, it's creamy, but I like it thick. I don't know if you can see here. Oh my gosh, the light is terrible. So it's like that. So I'm going to add another half cup of oil, slowly. That looks much thicker. Didn't put it all in because I kind of wanted to check first. Maybe not too much. I don't think it's all incorporated yet. I'm going to put this down, run it again for a few minutes, and I'll be back. Okay, so I added the other half cup of oil and I let it mix for a while longer, and it has thickened up considerably, and it will thicken up more in the fridge. I'm just going to show you. Okay, so here it is, and this is how thick it is. I did put the extra half cup of oil, and it did thicken up. I let it run for a bit to, to get it all mixed in well. I've made it thicker than this, but this will thicken up in the fridge, and it tastes really good. Okay, so I don't know what it's like at your house, but at my house, trying to find the right container is like looking for gold. And then you find the right container and you can't find the lid. So I don't know if this is the right size. I think it's too big, but it has a lid that matches. So that's what we're going with today. Yeah, I don't know if it would have fit in a smaller one. So one of the frustrations using a food processor, a blender, anything like that is getting the bits out at the end. And again, as you have heard, I hate to waste anything. And you probably already know this, but what I do, I take out as much as I can. Technology's great, isn't it? Works even better if you do it right. And I'm just going to pulse it. Now I can put it in the sink. So then when you take this blade out, it's actually quite cleaned off because it has spun all the stuff into the bowl. And then it's easy just to take it off and clean it out. Now I will say that's harder to do with a blender because at least I haven't found out a way yet that you can take the blade out unless taking the whole thing apart, and I'm really not going to do that. So like I've got another quarter cup out of there. So for that reason too, I do not like making mayo in my blender. I find it too hard to clean out at the end, and I don't want to waste any of this because as though it's probably cheaper than buying in the store, it's not cheap, especially if you're using good oils. And I try not to waste. So, there we go. Homemade mayo, fresh. The only thing I would do differently is I feel, even for me, that there's too much salt. I might add a tiny squeeze of lemon to break it down a bit. But you're usually putting it on or in something anyway, so I just won't salt whatever I put it in. And that's it. I have fresh homemade mayo. I don't make a lot. Well, I mean, I could, to be honest. I could make a lot, and it wouldn't go bad because they go through it like water here. But this is about the perfect amount because you don't want to make it and then have it sit in the fridge and go bad on you. And it does have raw egg in it, so I don't know what the safety margin is. I'm guessing no more than a week in the fridge. I'll be lucky if that lasts 2 days. And they seem to eat more of it when it's homemade because they like the flavor better. But what can you do? That's what happens when you try to raise kids on good food. They get a taste for homemade. And when the kids were little, I mean, we had 9 kids, still have 9 kids. When they were all home, and my husband was the only one working, I wasn't working outside the home, I was homeschooling at home. And money was tight, and you know, we couldn't afford to go out to eat, and pizza especially was one of our favorite foods. So I made homemade pizzas, and that's not cheap either, I'm sorry. But anyways, long story short, for a treat, I would make homemade pizzas, and I'd make like 6 huge ones. So when a few years down the road and we moved back here, near my parents, my husband was making good money at the time, and you know, I'd go buy box pizza at the store or even takeout and thinking I was giving them a treat, and yeah, it wore off really quick. They were begging for homemade pizza. And I was raised on homemade food. Now, my mom used a lot more canned vegetables and stuff than I do. I don't even have any in the house. Because she worked full time, she worked shift work. she'd grown up on a farm. They'd eaten right from the garden, right from the field, their whole lives. And I think the convenience things that started coming out in her era were, probably quite a blessing for them. I think it signified something like food security, because they didn't, when she was growing up, if they had a bad year and something didn't grow, they didn't eat it. They didn't run to the store and buy more. A lot of things like sugar and stuff like that, they only had it during certain times of the year when they had, raised meat and sold it, or sold something and had extra money. So to be able to have things readily available, like the canned foods and the box foods, was, quite convenient and maybe a bit of a relief in many ways. Not just because of the cooking, but also that maybe it signified better times. And probably even the packaged foods were healthier then than they are now. But anyway, all that to say, she still cooked a lot from scratch when she could. And I loved it. I loved fresh carrots. I loved peas, all the things. I don't think there's a vegetable that I don't like, even as a kid. So now we seem to be reverting, and I'm thankful. And it's a challenge sometimes because it takes more work and more effort to prepare the foods, to prepare the ingredients to go in the foods. But when you see the enjoyment, and when you feel good about what you're feeding your family, this is such a passionate subject for me. I'm sorry. It makes the effort worthwhile, and I'm really thankful I'm home now because I can do all this. I couldn't do as regularly when I was working. And are we paying for it in other ways? Yes, we are. But I don't know that I will say everything happens for a reason. I will say things happen. And I believe that God helps us to make the most. He takes all things and works it together for good, whether it was a good thing or a bad thing, whether it was something in his plan or something not. I don't understand all that. I don't understand why some things happen and some things don't, when I know he has the power to make it all perfect. But it's not my job to understand, it's my job to trust. And I'm trusting. I'm trusting that no matter what comes my way, his grace can enable me to take what the enemy meant for evil and turn it around for good, to just work all things, not some things, all things. He works all things for our good, and I know I'm thankful right now. I'm finding the things to be thankful about in a difficult situation. Some days it's easier than others, but I'm thankful that I'm home. I never wanted to have to go to work. I loved raising my kids and being at home, but when Glenn got sick, I had another role to fill, and I needed to help and to do a part, and so I did, and there was good in that too. I met the most amazing people. I worked with the most amazing people, and we shared a lot of laughs, a lot of tears. And you haven't seen humor till you've worked with nurses. I won't even go there. Yeah, there's some pretty funny stories. And these are stories that I'll cherish my whole life. And memories that I'm so thankful for and that mean everything to me. And so you could just go with the flow. You take each day as it comes, and you trust, and you hope, and you keep moving forward. You keep moving forward. You know, take time to grieve if you need to, and you may grieve for years, but I think there's a season of almost debilitating grief where it's hard to focus and it's hard to move forward and it's hard to even think past what's happening. But that, you can't live there. You can't stay there. There's more for you. There's more to come. And you don't want to miss it. You don't want to miss it. And it's not all going to be good. And there's going to be more hard days. And there's going to be more difficulties. And there's going to be times you're going to get hurt. And there's, you know, this is life. This is life. So, anyway, thanks for hanging out in my kitchen this morning. Thank you for coming to my channel. If you want to keep seeing the things I post, I'm going to try to be more regular. I'm going to try for 2 videos a week. But in order to do that, I need some ideas. So if you guys have something you'd like to see me do, make, talk about, whatever, please leave comments below. I cherish those comments. It means a lot to me. It only takes a few seconds, and it really does help me. And if you want to keep seeing things, subscribe down below. I guess it's going to be on this side. I don't know. I'm pretty rookie at this. And you'll see my videos, some of them aren't very good. I've got one coming up and the visual is just terrible. It's noisy. I should know to get Kleenexes. If it's not peeling onions, it's stories that make me cry. It was just very grainy. It was the sound wasn't good, and this may be terrible as well. I'm a rookie. I'm not a professional. I'm not polished. I keep saying that over and over. But I am committed. And I learn as I go. I've learned a lot about video editing. Obviously not everything I need, but it's coming along. I'm picking up new ideas, and I couldn't do this if I was working. I wouldn't have the time to spend that I've had to spend learning all this, and it's taken a lot of time. That's how one of my last videos that I recorded, probably won't be posted. Well, it may be posted already. I thought it was morning, and I come down to do my thing, and it was 2:30 in the afternoon. Well, I wasn't sleeping all morning. I wake up between 5 and 5:30 every morning. I was up there editing videos and checking out videos and learning new things, and so it's been an adventure. And it's been, who knows where it's going to go. I don't know. Anyway, I'm just going to run it as far as I can, or as far as it takes me, and enjoy the ride. Have a good day.